the great Sigmund had an excellent point. He said, well, if you examine religion, however sympathetically or unsympathetically, you're forced to notice the strong connection between the wish and the thought. The element of wish thinking is unbanishable from religion, mainly because we're the only species that definitely knows that one by one we're going to die. To give someone the suggestion that maybe an exception could be made in their own case is making a fairly obvious offer. The commonest objection I get when I go to debate the faithful here is that, so don't you know all the great work that Christians are doing in Africa? I said, well, actually I do. But I know of a lot of people who do the same kind of work without any religious motivation. You're not proving anything about your faith by doing this. Is this the most you'll say for yourself, that you're a charity? Because I'm not against philanthropy. I am against missionary work. And I'm against offering people bandages in exchange for coming to a Bible class. I think that's actually rather horrible. But they don't always even do that. They're very insipid. They'll say, but you know, I know some good Christians who run a school for retarded children. I sure. Right. But that's what Hamas says, and Hezbollah. And they both say, and it's true of them too, we
take care of
the poorest. Right. If the doctor doesn't come to your bit of the ghetto, we'll find you a doctor, or we'll get you to a hospital. We will. The Red Crescent will come. We'll make them do it, and we'll rebuild your house, and we'll feed your children. Yes, of course. But that, when they do it, the pitch is obvious. Yeah. Okay, it's fundamentalists buying support from
slightly cleaner proposition.
Frightened, poor, diseased, illiterate people on the pretext of compassion. We say, well, who can't see through that? That's a man-made political movement. Like Mother Teresa, who promised to try and evangelize India so that the people there would stop using contraceptives. That was what she said she wanted to do.
The overlap between religion and politics, you know, just keeps coming up over and over again.
Yes.
And the book is fairly clear of politics. I mean, but you are not.
Not as much as I'd like to be. No. I don't have any political allegiances anymore. I'm not a member of any party, for example.
But your opinions are fairly well known.
Yeah. Well, if you say so.
I think.
If you say so, then they are.
I think so.
So, thank you.
So, but when I was reading the book, I was thinking, you know, every chapter is steering clear of politics, you know, largely. I mean, it's, you know, you can draw your own conclusions from time to time.
It's an argument with faith only.
Yeah. But even in this conversation, we found ourselves, you know, dipping into it.
Well, that's because I think religion has become an optional belief, see, because of the availability of better and clearer and more beautiful explanations for things. Someone can go on being a believer if they like, but it's purely optional. You can be a physicist and go to maths, but you can't say your physics is what takes you there. You can't derive it from that. It's optional. Some people are that way. Isaac Newton was an alchemist, spiritualist. Joseph Priestley, who discovered oxygen, believed in the phlogiston theory. He was Unitarian. I don't care. Fine by me. As long as he doesn't try and make me be one.
Right.
But unfortunately, innate in religion is the belief that it can't be kept private, that it ought to come out and try and change the laws for everyone else. And the danger is not always the same every time and in every country, but it's always there. My analogy is, my favorite one, is Albert Camus, La Peste, the plague, remember? At the end of the novel, the rats have gone back into the sewers and the city is healthy again and the nightmare is over, but it ends by saying, but still the rats were down and the bacilli in the sewers, and one day they will emerge again and send the rats up to die in a free city. They're always there, always there waiting.
But you do see things. You see things in quite extreme terms. I mean, I don't hear you ever being attracted to any moderate views. You know, I mean, you see these things. You see them as big ideological battles.
I think at the moment there's a very, very radical confrontation between what I would call civilization and faith. Yes, and the stakes are extremely high. I mean, some of the worst bigots in the world, in Iran, worst fanatics in the world are about to get their mitts on a nuclear weapon. I take that very seriously. I don't think we should necessarily be hysterical about it, but it's an extremely unsettling thought, because the next government of Iran could be a lot worse than the present one is. And we would have no control over it because it's a dictatorship. The same is true of the Jewish nutbags in the Palestinian territories who hope that by doing this they'll bring on the Messiah and Armageddon. Supported in this by the Christian right in the United States, which, although it's overrated as a force, is still much too strong for comfort.
So is this a recent phenomenon or just a more
Well,
visible?
I think it's become, yeah, there's something worse that is new, which is the willingness of secular liberals to capitulate to theocratic intimidation, especially if it's Muslim, because they feel, I think it's because they have a bad conscience about the third world.
Because they believe in pluralism?
It's partly because of a soft form of multiculturalism, and it's partly because, annoyingly to me, at any rate, the Muslims have managed to persuade a lot of people that Islam is in some way a religion of the oppressed third world. Right? Even though Al-Qaeda started to make war on India long before the United States, and India is the most important secular, though predominantly Hindu, democracy in the world. That's the country they started to attack first. They really hate the Hindus. They really like to destroy India by wrenching Kashmir. Very serious. If they start a civil war in India, it would be a complete disaster, not just for Asia. No one in the American press would reprint the cartoons from Copenhagen, where individual Danes around the world are being targeted for murder. The Danish economy and democracy is being sabotaged, boycotted, Danish embassies being burned. Everyone stood by. Said, well, let's not get too involved because we don't want to offend anybody. No one would reprint the cartoons. This is in a picture-dominated media, where the whole issue was the images. That we're not going to show you what the images are for fear of giving offence, and also just out of fear.
Right.
And little magazine that I write for, called Free Inquiry, an atheist magazine, published out of New Hampshire, which did print them, was told by Borders Books, you can't sell that in our chain.
Because they're scared of a bomb going off.
That might be what they said.
It strikes me that the other side of this debate has built-in support groups. I mean, people are meeting, going to church, going to synagogue, going to temple, going to the mosque all the time.
Yes.
But there's no support group on this side.
Well, that's our strength, that we don't need support groups. Precisely our strength. If I meet someone in Georgia or Manila or Calcutta who thinks like me, it takes a few minutes of conversation and society before we understand each other. I mean, of course, we know. There are millions of us all over the world. It's an easy handshake of recognition. We don't think, okay, now what we better do is go every 7 days or twice a day to shout and holler just to reassure ourselves we still believe it. We don't need that. It can be believed without strain.
It's true. Without
effort, without fanaticism. It's an understanding. It's based on reason and literature and, to some extent, irony, the imperishable, necessary X factor quality.
Humor. I mean, that's in your
book. And a little humor and culture. And usually some shared experience. Fine, we don't need to reaffirm it all the time. It's a sign of the weakness of religion that it keeps on needing to pump people up at mass rallies of one kind or another. That it needs constant reinforcement. Of course it needs that. It would crumble without it.
Right. Have you ever had any phenomenon where you felt like the wind got behind you like it is at the moment? Have you had these moments where everything seems to be...
No.
Coming together?
No, especially not having announced, a month ago, I said to people, I think that there's something in the zeitgeist now, it's the perfect moment, and everything now seems to confirm it. No, never. There's usually been entirely the opposite. It's very much against the grain.
Well,
millions of people think Henry Kissinger is a great statesman, a great intellectual. I know better, but you've got all your work to do. It's like breaking rocks.
Well, what are you going to do?
Millions of secular people thought Mother Teresa was a saintly woman, instead of the douchebag and liar and thief that she actually was. The wind is in your face all the time, never behind you. Now I feel sort of borne aloft.
Right, but you're never going to quite feel like you're on the side of conformity.
Actually, one week I did feel this, only because in the same week the Princess Diana had checked out. And I was saying, this is an absurd fuss everyone's making. And because I was the only person prepared to say so on TV, I was invited on. I was wearing makeup practically all week, feeling a fool in Washington, but it was fun. pushing back at this terrible sob fest. And then Mother Teresa died the same week, and I thought, oh, well, there is a God. Because there's the only one person in the world who's written a book pissing on her. And they have to have me on again.
Right.
I was never off TV all week. It was preposterous. But I got some licks in. I didn't just have to shout back at the box all the time, watching the celebration of frauds, which is mainly what happens the rest of the year.
You shouldn't seem so delighted about that. It's very bad for them.
Well, I like it when bad people die. I don't love my enemies. That's why I think Christianity is immoral. Go love your own enemies, don't be loving mine.